Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's podcast. Today, we are joined by Mahmood. Will you introduce yourself, please?
I'd love to. Anita, thank you very much for inviting me on. My name is Mahmood. I am the author of the book I Hate Numbers and founder of the firm of the same name, and also my YouTube channel, which makes it easy to remember. Interesting. I describe myself these days as a business finance fixer, a coach and an author, and somebody who predominantly is there to help business owners make more money, increase the financial awareness, reduce their stress and anxiety, and have the businesses they aspire to.
Brilliant. That's a fantastic introduction.
Thank you.
Well done. So the podcast is called Midlife Tubers, and it's all about getting you started on YouTube and with video. So Midlife Tubers, because I really want it to aim at midlife business owners and professionals who are a little bit worried about video or are in video and loving it, and just to have an open conversation about it. So I hate numbers. Obviously, you're an accountant. And what made you go onto video to actually sort of like get over your message? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, great question. My background, Anita, is I'm originally from the world of education. And I've moved into industry, and then I moved to start my own business. And I think typically when it comes to anything to do with finance, accounting, I think as soon as you mention to somebody you're an accountant, a garlic comes out, their eyes roll over, and they want to stab themselves with a pencil. Accountants, generally speaking, my colleagues and professions, are very poor of communication. English is typically their second language here. So what I wanted to do, it was to actually expand people's knowledge and connection with their numbers. And the best way to communicate with people is visually, not lots of text there. And I thought video was a great medium to do that. I'm not saying I'm by any stretch broadcast set for a Hollywood career, but I just thought for me, video, turn up and do that. It's a great way to connect with the audience, and it's a great way to actually get your message spread across to reach and to connect with a wide variety of individuals.
Yeah, I do find that video, obviously people go to YouTube to find a solution most of the time. You know, there's two different types of video on YouTube. There's entertainment and then there's like education. And I do find that with numbers, you know, tax returns, running your books and all those sorts of things within a business, most people would tend to go to a video rather than a book. So I think you're right that being able to talk to people and actually explain things to them is a lot easier. So tell the audience, how do you do your videos? Like we were talking just before we went on air about talking head, but do you use any other tools to
help? Very much so. So my you can call it YouTube career, if you can call that very modestly.
Yeah, of course.
Started off with a very humble phone, using that, and obviously some very shaky, wobbly stuff as well. So over time, I then started using my iPhone a bit more actively. I've done video recording straight, like on a slideshow, straight to my PC and figuring out there. In the early stages, I did my own editing as well, which is interesting, to put it mildly. And somehow I don't think a career change is on the cards for me as a video editor. And then in the last probably 6 months to a year, because of the progress of the channel and everything else, I've upped my games more. So I bought a Sony camera. Don't ask me what model it is, because I wouldn't be able to tell you. But somebody bought it, recommended it for me, my sort of one of my technical people. Got the green screen. So it's a combination of lights as well. I'm developing to something probably a few steps below semi-professional studio, but it's more than sort of filming in a tin can.
Yeah, perfect. So you started off on your phone, and you know, and I think that's what I really want to get over on this podcast as well, is that you don't have to have all the tech. We were just talking about the camera, because I've actually got one here which I'm not using to record this, and this is a Sony ZV-E10. I do have a different lens on it because that was one that I got recommended, which is a slightly longer one. But sometimes I find it just overcomplicates things. So that's why it's sitting there and it's not being used, because it's just another thing to think about that I don't really want to think about. So I've got my webcam on at the moment, and then I've got, you know, like you, a Rode microphone, and then, like you say, the lights. So you don't have to get to that point where you want to upgrade your equipment until you feel more confident with what you're doing. And like you said, so your YouTube channel, you said it's sort of like moving on another level. So how do you feel that that's happened? What have you done over the last, say, 12 months to help you get your YouTube channel to that stage? What do you think you've done differently?
Good question. I think if I compare and contrast, I think in the early stages, like a lot of people getting into videos, predominantly YouTube here, is just film it, get it done, get it out there without actually thinking about, does it hit the audience? Does it, resonate? Can people find it? And what I've done more constructively over the last 12 months, with some important help from yourself, is to do things like once I got past the magic 1,000 subscribers barrier, which for me was a real long haul, by the way, and really quite painful. But once I got that, and then I did things like, oh, actually, it would be useful to put searchable titles on there. It would be useful to put tags in there. It'd be useful to have a good thumbnail. It'd be good to actually make sure that what your title is resonates with the content. Think about script outlines, all that sort of thing. And I think because I'm being consistent as well, so even though it may not be somebody would say win an Oscar or anything, what I'm doing as a habit is actually every week when I've made a commitment, I've actually produced a video, got it uploaded, so therefore users know it's there. One of the good things as well, because I'm doing this consistently and there are actually topics that people want to connect with and find out more about, it actually gets more traffic from YouTube itself recommending it to other people. So I think it's just consistency, thinking more about what goes into the video, thinking about how people can find the video, because my understanding is YouTube is probably the second biggest search engine after Google, probably ranking now with TikTok. But effectively, it's thinking about a user, what they're going to look for, and making sure the content matches that and what I want to talk about as well.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head really there about how you have to sort of think about the videos, because I think sometimes, and I think it's nothing wrong with it, because I think you discover that as you go through your journey when you step into video. But a lot of the time we talk on a video like we're talking to people, but we don't actually talk to them, if that makes sense, because we're not connecting what they really need. We're projecting what we think they need, but actually when you step back and think about what do they actually need to know, and that could be, like you say, something topical, especially like this year, we're all getting that email from the tax man, if you're in the UK, that the tax is due, you need to do your self-assessment, and some people have to do their business tax and things like that. So bringing out videos on that are related to that sort of thing would help YouTube with the search and things like that. So, and another thing you picked up was the marathon, because it is a marathon. It's not something that will happen overnight. And I think when you go onto YouTube, specifically with video, it's a long-term commitment. And you're doing a weekly video, you said, and that's something
I'm doing a weekly video, looking to up that to probably twice a week from about next February, March itself. And it's interesting you say about the tax video. I do a component of them are tax videos, but it's like business arena. So one of my more popular videos is on a completion of a form that if you've got income from the United States here. And the more I think about it, one of the things that's helped me is that when people do make comments, which is really good here, I'll make sure I respond to all the comments that are on there and not just leave them passively. And that seems to add a bit more juice to the YouTube search as well.
Yeah, I think people tend not to do that. I think I was talking the other day about, when you go to a drive-through, you'll drive through, you pick up the coffee and then you go. And it's a bit like that with YouTube. A lot of people will drive through, drop their video off and then go, and they don't think about coming back to see what's happening with it, whether anyone's looking at it, whether it's getting engagement, because they're looking at YouTube as like just another social media platform, rather than actually, I want to work on this social media platform because this is going to give me some visibility and actually could in turn lead into leads and generate income for me through my business, not necessarily being a creator, like you say, not necessarily being a full-time video creator, but actually you're using it to amplify your business. And I think that's, looking at the comments actually gives you content for the future. So if you're ever sitting there wondering, what can I actually record for my audience? Go back into the videos that you've already done and see if anyone's wrote any questions and comments, and actually identify them, through that, and then respond to them, like you say, actually go in and write a response to them.
100%.
Yeah, brilliant. So your own channel is called I Hate Numbers, and I've got it up on the screen now. So for those of you who are watching this podcast on YouTube, you'll be able to see it on the screen. So you've got 4,930-ish subscribers, which is fantastic. How are you feeling about, being a man and videoing? So the reason I brought this question up is because this title of this YouTube and this podcast is Midlife Tubers. And as a female, I get a lot of clients who are very nervous about being on camera. And I tend to feel that it's a female thing, having those nerves about being on camera and things like that. But how is it for you as a male in a arena where, like, especially on YouTube, it's quite male orientated? But how do you feel about being on camera?
Okay, great question. If I was to be brutally honest, Anita, every single time I record a video, I always tend to have a bit of nerves, and I always tend to be very overcritical about the stuff that I recorded. So I listen back to the videos and you think, oh my gosh, there are some word fillers there that you can extract. It's not really super polished. And I always think that I could do much better the next time round as well. So I always look for little increments. I always get nervous, by the way, every time I do a fit to camera, but I try and be like a duck. So I try and maintain some sort of semblance of calm there as well, because people don't want to engage with somebody who looks like a bag of nerves there as well. But I wouldn't say confidence is a strange thing, because I think the other extreme is if you go on there feeling ultra calm and confident, it can come across as quite cocky, and I think that comes across as quite arrogant. So yeah, I get nervous. If I could choose not to do so, and there's suddenly people would knock on my door and say, Mahmood, we've heard about you from a friend of ours, like some secret Masonic society, can we buy stuff from you? Then I'd say, great, come on in, and I wouldn't do anything like broadcasting. But yeah, I get nervous. I don't think it's necessarily a male-female thing. I could be wrong. Mainly men are more, I won't say if the word cocky is an appropriate term, are more overconfident when they don't need to be. But yeah, I still get nerves. I still get, I don't think I've ever done a video to camera where I'm thinking, do you know what? I feel perfect right. What I am finding though, slowly, is that this phrase authentic self is a bit overused here. But I always try and think in terms of, if somebody saw me on camera and they spoke to me on a Zoom call, or I met them in person, I don't want them to think your persona on camera is like this, but I'm meeting you in real life and it's like a completely different character. So I try and get back into that. And half the key for that is being prepared about the information you're going to communicate. The more you're rehearsed with it, the more you're comfortable with what you're going to be talking about, the easier it is to become, that sort of somebody who's got that element of confidence coming across on camera.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, because I think a lot of people, when it comes to video, think that they have to be something else to do the video, and they're afraid to just turn up as themselves. And I think, like you say, the authenticity, it's not so much about, like you say, about the authenticity, it's just about being you and being able to just relax, I suppose, in front of the camera and almost forget that it's there, so that you can, like you say, if someone walks up to you in the street or comes to your office, they're not expecting to see somebody else. You're the same on camera as you are in real life. I think that would be the thing that I would really want people to take away from this, is that the camera, like all things on social media, it's not a facade, it's not a polished, it's just you. And the more you can be just you on camera, I think the more people will be attracted to you.
That's a great point. I mean, I also think it's sometimes about, we as individuals become very hypercritical of our own voices. But I'm thinking, so when somebody hears their voice back and they think, oh gosh, that doesn't sound very nice. And I'm thinking, well, when you speak to people, that's what they're hearing. Because in your head, you think you're like a perfect singer. But when you actually hear it recorded, played back to you, it's not so good, maybe so. But, that's what people are exposed to. So try not to be over self-conscious about what you look like, what you sound. And there's an element for me of indifference. I'm thinking ultimately, without wishing to be too flippant about it, I don't really care. In a sense, I'm going to turn up, I'm going to do that. If everybody dislikes it, that's fine. But, I'm doing it for me, and I'm doing it to help people who want to hear that content.
Yeah, and people who connect with you in that way will be your clients of the future. And I think you're right. You do have to have a bit of hard skin when it comes to some comments of people. And I think I've noticed that recently on my own channel, that some people can be quite harsh with their comments, and I think sometimes that scares people away from actually even being on video. Is like, oh, people will just make fun of me, or they'll just comment and things like that. And I think I quite like the way that I reframe it, is that if they say those things to you, whether it's like, oh, that video could have been a bit shorter, or, well, I don't like the way you did that, that's fine, but that's because they're not doing it themselves, and they're jealous of the fact that you're confident enough to stand up in front of the camera and do it, because there's I suppose they're seeing a reflection of what they can't do, and they just feel like they need to sort of like take it out, like a bit keyboard warrior, because they can hide behind the keyboard.
100%. Plus, on top of it, they've taken the time to stop and watch the video, so
exactly.
There must be something about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It.
Yeah, they're looking for the information, so you've ticked the box there, and ultimately when they get to know you a bit more and your style, they'll probably come back for more. So sometimes, and also I think that's quite a good point, is that your videos aren't going to be what everybody wants to see, and that's like everything, isn't it? We are not going to like everyone in the world the same way as everyone is not going to like us in the world, because it's just how life is. Everyone has their
absolutely.
Their tendencies to do things. So thinking about, you've given us some really good insights into how you've been using video recently for your business and things. What would you say would be one of the most frustrating elements of YouTube? So if a viewer was on listening to this and thinking, right, well, I'm going to go onto YouTube, just like, what would you say was one of the most frustrating things you came across when you were starting your YouTube journey?
Probably actually not thinking too much at the beginning about what to say. So you just turn up and say something without actually thinking, do you know what? You overcomplicate things sometimes about saying you've got to have a perfect script. You've got to memorize everything parrot fashion. You become too self-conscious of doing that. So that's dissipating. And I think it's also, I'm becoming better at it in terms of what I call batch producing videos. And batch, by the way, for me, is if I do 2 or 3 videos at the same time, that's a success. My benchmark is to go for about a month outline content there as well. And I think that's it. The frustrating thing is about, what do I talk about? But then you think about all the questions you ever get asked by people in your business, that is the subject of a video.
Yeah. So don't overcomplicate things, and just don't get too tied up in the script. I use bullet points a lot for mine. So I do plan my videos just so that you have an idea, because when you're nervous, you tend to get brain block quite quickly. And then if you've been recording something for a couple of minutes and you're like, oh, I'm on the flow, and then suddenly you forget things. I always have like little bullet points on my notes on my computer that's up on the left. So it just gives you that little trigger to know what you're thinking about. So it's been fantastic. I just wanted to quickly ask you, earlier on you said about outsourcing videos, but before you were outsourcing your editing, were there any tools that you used by hand?
In the early stages, I invested in Camtasia.
Okay.
I probably used a very fraction of it, but for me it was great. So I could import the video in there, edit it. Again, not looking particularly brilliant, but actually that was better. So Camtasia has always been my tool of choice from the very beginning, pretty much. I've used some of the phone-based tools like InShot and all the rest of it. Maybe because I've got clunky fingers here, I don't find it particularly brilliant to use there as well.
Quite hard on the phone.
Yeah. So that's probably my tool of choice, is something like Camtasia or a video editor. I use also rev.com for getting the transcripts done. And I think what business owners got to think about sometimes, they might think, do you know what? But Mahmood, that means I've got to spend money. And the way I've always looked at it, pretty much from the early stages of my business life, is to say, do a weighing up exercise. Think of how much time you're spending doing something on the cheap or for free, for your own time, and how much you think your time is worth. If you can get a tool that cuts down that time, or you can access a resource that actually speeds things up, you're in a win-win situation.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to leave it on there, because I use Camtasia and it's actually developed amazingly this year. They've introduced AI into it, and some of the video tools within the Camtasia for actually recording are just like out of this world. They're just like phenomenal. So it might cost a little bit at the beginning, but actually in the long run it will save you so much time, money, energy, and things like that. So Mahmood, how can people find you? So obviously you've got your channel. tell everyone who's listening and watching how they can find you. Where's the best place to connect with you if they want to talk to you about working with you in the future?
Fantastic. Well, you've got the I Hate Numbers here, which is surprisingly called I Hate Numbers. You can contact me. I tend to be quite nosy and stick around a lot of social media platforms. So you can either contact me via LinkedIn. You can actually just put I Hate Numbers in the search engine. There aren't that many I Hate Numbers or Mahmood Rezas out there. You can connect me via my website at www.ihatenumbers.co.uk. Send a message to Mr. Google. Is a very friendly person to talk to find out there I am, and I'd love to see if there's anyone out there who might need some help with their numbers and moving their businesses forward.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me on the Midlife Tubers podcast. I'm your host, Anita Wong. I will pop Mahmood's information below this on YouTube and in the podcasting suite, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thanks very much for inviting me. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Take care.